teachers in particular, I'm assuming you have your finger more on the pulse than the average person since you work at an educational institution. What's the general consensus on how that's going to impact everyone's classrooms, and what's your opinion?
Yeah, just much like calculators. When that came out, and kids were using a calculator in the classroom, it was looked at as cheating. You were typing numbers in and just getting the answer without having to do really having any thought process about it at all. And now it's just part of every math curriculum, and it allows you to do higher math, right? By getting all the simple stuff out of the way that you did learn. So when you look at ChatGPT, okay, this is the way I think about it. And of course, there's already kids all over the country on academic probation by just having ChatGPT write a paper for them. It's one of those analogies, Bill Cosby, he talked about one time that when he'd take paper, to get, he'd have the paper weighed and then you get money back for the paper. Well, one of his friends, and they'd sneak rocks inside the paper to give it a little more weight, get a little more money back. And old Weird Harold, he'd put rocks on top of the paper, right? You think, what? That's a very dumb thing to do. So if you have, a kid who's written a paper, and written a paper, and the teacher knows how this kid writes, and all of a sudden they turn in this ChatGPT formulated paper, it doesn't resonate with any kind of the style that the kid had before. Right. So it's obvious that they didn't write the paper. So if we look at this now with ChatGPT in a different way, like the calculator, okay, as an example. For instance, when I was learning how to play guitar, I wanted to play just like Eddie Van Halen, okay? And that took some work to get there. And now, whenever I write a song, it has the Van Halen influence. Okay, so you can hear that style. And just automatically, if someone hears a song who's a real Van Halen fan, that's going to be something that's attracted to them, and they don't know why. It's because you've added bias, in a sense. And so ChatGPT, we can use it as a learning tool in that way. So for instance, there's some amazing writers here at the school, some teachers. And so what I can do with ChatGPT 4 is I can write a paper, and then I can submit maybe all the comments that a teacher has written over the past, papers they've written, to ChatGPT 4 and say, copy the style of this writer, Hemingway, doesn't matter, right? And then apply this style to my paper. And now your paper, it's your ideas, but it's stylized like a better author that you chose. So how's that different from me learning the guitar, just like copying someone else, then writing my own stuff, and it's just influenced that way because that's what I learned from the beginning. So I think it's a great tool in that sense, where you still want to have your own original ideas. You don't want the thing to write, papers for you, but why not write something and then have it stylized by a writer you like to see what that feels like?
Yeah.
So there's lots of great advantages to ChatGPT, and of course, there's going to be some things that are bad as well, and we'll discover both more and more.
Right. Yeah. So your analogy of having influences that are musical, you get those people who maybe have one influence that they're just obsessed with, and everything they ever write sounds exactly like Metallica, if that's who it is for them. And then you get the people who have many influences and integrate it into their own sound eventually. If, those are special people. So it sounds like your ability to remain unique while integrating something like ChatGPT with whatever your style is going to be this race of who can prompt the best, right?
Sure.
That's going to be a skill.
And imagine this. So I write a paper on my own. I take an author, sample that author, and use that style on my paper. And then I do that with another author as well, and then restylize it with something that's already styled. It's the same as having all these influences that you had, George Lynch, Eddie Van Halen, all these things that influence your playing in many ways. Now you have your writing influenced in that way. But like I said, the one of the dangers, okay, let's say a kid were to do that, write a paper and then have it stylized by their teacher's writing, and you turn it in. And the teacher would know that those are your ideas, but it's just going to feel right to the teacher because you've added bias that they're not even aware of. So those are some of the interesting things I think that are going to happen.
Wild. Well, I do. I want to integrate some fun into the podcast. So we're going to play a couple games. But before that, I want to ask you a question I've always wondered and for some reason have never asked a teacher. How do you, I imagine to teach the same exact material maybe 4 times in one day, does it ever become monotonous? And if so, have you found loopholes to overcome that monotony?
What I do is I record every class. And what I find is, based on the questions the kids ask, based on the reactions of things that I say, in recording it, I find that in some places I explain something a little bit better than I did in another way. And so by listening back to those classes, I can really tune in on the stuff that the kids really reacted to.
Oh, okay.
And so it helps me become a better teacher in that way. And I get better analogies, all these different kinds of things as I'm teaching. And when I see what the kids do, I see they get it. When I see somebody that comes, like they got it, and that I think is a magical time for me.